not condition 1.
Okay.
So normally without a round in the chamber.
So when the person was trying to break in your front door and you picked up your gun, it was already ready to go, right?
Yes.
Was the safety on?
Yes.
Did you turn it off?
No.
So you approached the stranger at your front door with a loaded gun ready to fire, but the safety's still on, correct?
Yes, that is how you train. You don't take the safety off until immediately before you fire, and then you immediately put it back on.
And holding that gun, you told the stranger to leave.
Yes.
Holding that gun, you told the stranger that you were armed, correct?
Yes.
Holding that gun, you opened your front door to the stranger and said you should go, correct?
Yes.
Holding that gun, you showed the stranger your weapon, and you said, look, I'm armed, correct?
Yes.
You told the stranger you could shoot, correct?
No, but
Pretty much
I'm flashing it. Yes. Yes.
You had called the police that night.
Yes.
Your muscle memory didn't take over, right? You didn't just shoot the stranger.
Because the stranger wasn't holding my child.
But the stranger was trying to break into the house where your child was located.
But I was in between that person and the child. And they were never in the house.
And you didn't shoot that stranger in the head, did you?
No.
You waited for the police and the stranger just walked away.
Well, they continued banging on windows and trying to get in through windows, and then eventually left as I stayed downstairs and monitored.
So this person not just knocks on your door and attempts to break in, but now they're breaking through windows. You don't see your child and you don't shoot, correct?
They didn't actually break a window, but they were banging on windows, yes.
You testified that on February the 14th of 2024, you called the Berlin Police Department, right?
Yes.
And you called them because you just had a fight over the phone, so you say, with Caitlyn, correct?
Yes.
And that was about custody, correct?
Yes.
And in that phone conversation, is it fair to say that Caitlyn made some of the same statements you've testified she made on the 29th before you shot her?
Yes.
You say that she was demanding money, she wanted the kids on her taxes, she was never going to let you see them again, and she was going to bring them back to Minnesota, correct?
Yes.
So to call the Berlin Police Department, you had to look up that phone number, correct?
I did, yes.
You spoke with somebody for over 6 minutes at the police department, didn't you?
Okay, yes.
On February 29th, you had your cell phone with you, right?
I couldn't say where it was, but
You had it while Caitlyn was at your apartment?
yes.
You had it the whole time that she was there?
Yes.
You had it the every 15 to 30 minutes that you walked in to ask her to leave and she ignored you?
Well, I wasn't seeing a threat at that point.
But you were nervous.
I was, yes.
You testified just now that that made you wonder what the plan was, what she was going to do, whether something was afoot, correct?
But I don't think that would be appropriate to call the police over.
But then after those, you didn't shoot her then either, correct?
No.
So after going into the room every 15 to 30 minutes, and let's be clear, this is from lunchtime, correct, until it gets dark.
Yes.
So let's say from noon till maybe 5 p.m.?
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
just as an average, right? So 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 hours, right? At any time during those, either the 5 hours or at any time during the day prior to shooting Caitlyn in the head, you never tried to force her to get out of your apartment, correct?
No, I didn't physically try to force her out of the home. No.
You knew that you could, right?
Because I'm stronger, I guess.
Well, you've in fact
Sure.
made her leave a home before, correct?
Your Honor, may I approach?
Sidebar during cross-examination there. Let's bring in our guest for this hour. Joining us from Los Angeles, California, former Deputy Public Defender for LA County, Philip Dubé is with us, aka the next best thing to Black's Law Dictionary is what I say about you, Philip. Let's talk about this defendant on the stand. What are you picking up from him? I mean, he's got a very certain kind of affect. Every defendant is different when we hear them, but the way he is able to calmly talk about this incident in a very matter-of-fact way, in a way that makes it seem like the jury should totally buy what he is saying, is the energy it seems like he's giving off.
Yeah, it's a form of trial cosplay, in my opinion. This is not a man who has been traumatized, like somebody who's been in and out of foxholes, avoiding landmines, tripwires, and aerial blasts that he claims to have endured when he was in combat. I believe he went to the Middle East some years back. And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, it was way back in 2011. So given the short service time that he had ample time to get over the trauma, or at least to get medicated on an ongoing basis to therapeutic levels. And to think that under these circumstances, he was unable to subdue her and really believe that he had the need to protect life and limb with that kind of firepower by shooting her in the head, this will not land well with the jury. I really predict this will be a swift guilty verdict. I do.
Philip, we heard him use the word threat there just a short time ago on the cross-examination. So, you know, his theory here, his thoughts here are that she was threatening to kidnap the children. He felt threatened. This is self-defense. Is it working?
No, merely threatening to do it is not enough to kill. Had she have actually perhaps reached for the kids, opened the car, threw in their belongings, threw one of the kids in the back seat and one in the front seat, then tried to rev the engine, maybe I could see some reasonable use of force. But even under those circumstances, I don't see the need to use lethal force. Remember who the quote-unquote abductor is, the mother of the children. You know, I think the spirit of the self-defense against kidnap law in the state of New Hampshire is to prevent some anonymous sort of predator out there who is looking to prey upon kids, kidnap them, drive off and have their way with them, and perhaps even end their lives. That's clearly not the situation here. This was a gross overreaction, almost looking for an excuse to use deadly force where it certainly was not indicated under this fact scenario.
Yet he wanted to come to trial and he wanted to testify in his own defense. Philip, stand by. That sidebar is now over. Let's pick it up after the sidebar breaks up.
Yes or no?
No.
Court's indulgence. Mr. Duren, at no time before you shot Caitlyn in the head did you call the police and tell them that she was refusing to leave your home, correct?
No.
At no time before you shot her in the head did you call the police and tell them that you were afraid that she was going to harm your children, correct?
That's correct.
At no time before you shot her in the head At any point during that day, did you call the police and say that you were afraid she would take your children, correct?
I did prior to that, but not that day, no.
You mean the February 14th phone call, correct?
Yes,
You didn't call the police back, correct?
no,
You didn't call back the officer that you spoke with for 6 minutes?
no,
You had set it up so that they were aware, correct?
yes.
But you never bothered to call them that day and say, hey, get this woman out of my house, correct?
Because at the point that this was happening, this was a moment-to-moment situation. I couldn't take my eyes or my focus off of Elwyn or Caitlyn.
Between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m., you asked Caitlyn to leave approximately, what, 12 times?
Well, yes, but that didn't seem appropriate enough a reason to call the police over.
She was staying in your house against your will, correct?
So I was trying to figure out the plan.
You were not concerned enough that you needed to call the police to have her leave, correct?
At that point, no.
But even though you wanted her to leave, you did nothing to make it happen.
I was
Correct?
trying to figure out the plan.
Mr. Duren, after you shot the police and you've testified here today that you didn't understand what had happened, correct?
Can you clarify? I
You
shot the
testi-
police?
After you shot Caitlyn, you have testified today that you did not understand what had happened, correct?
Yes, I was trying to figure it out.
You were trained as a Marine, right?
Yes?
You know what happens when you fire a gun at somebody, correct?
Yes.
You know what the intention is when you point and fire a gun at somebody, correct?
Yes.
And that intention is to kill.
Yes.
You knew that you had done that you had killed Caitlyn, correct?
I didn't consciously realize that it was Caitlyn until, like I said, I was in the car with Elwyn.
So you knew that there was somebody dead on the couch in your living room, right?
My focus was Elwyn.
And you knew that it was Caitlyn who had set you off and made you grab the gun.
I don't know if I would say set me off, but yes.
Well, you
Yes.
described it as a tick, right?
Yes.
Setting you off, it's a tick, right?
Hurting my child in front of me. Yes.
Okay. And your testimony today is that that is the reason why you fired.
Yes.
After you shot her, you didn't call the police to report that you had just killed somebody inside of your own apartment.
No.
You didn't call the police and report that you had done that because somebody had hurt your child, correct?
No.
You didn't do that to say to the police, hey, I thought they were going to kidnap my child, correct?
Correct.
You didn't.
Yeah, he didn't have that story initially. So, I mean, is it a story? Who knows? But that's the story he's saying.
That's the one he's sticking with on the stand.
We're going to take a break. More of this cross-examination when we come back.
I ended up asking him if he loved me. He said, I don't know. I said, do you love her? He said, I don't know.
That set you off?
Someone was stabbed?
Yes, she's on the floor.
I didn't have the intent to kill Sarah. I really just wanted to scare them.
It looks more like fury than fear. Did you kill Sarah to possess what she had with Josh?
Sorry.
Interview with a Killer. New episode Saturday night at 8 Eastern and Pacific. Only on Court TV.
Now back to New Hampshire for the Amber Alert murder trial for Dustin Duren.
He's a 38-year-old self-proclaimed gamer and musician, and he's accused of fatally shooting his longtime girlfriend before kidnapping their 2 children.
The 2 daughters, ages 1 and 4, were eventually found safe with Duren.
And that was after an Amber Alert was put out for him. Let's get you back into court now. He's under cross-examination by the state. So after his story of this being self-defense, he's now getting questioned about whether that is actually true.
Call the police and and say, hey, I thought that my child was being held hostage and I had no choice, correct?
I did not call the police and tell them those things, no.
You never called the police, did you?
I called my parents and told them to call the police,
You
yes.
agree that's not calling the police, correct?
Technically, no.
Not technically, sir. It is not calling the police to call your parents who live thousands of miles away. Fair to say?
Okay, yes.
Now, Mr. Duren, you and Caitlyn ostensibly, for lack of a better term, broke up in August of 2023, correct?
Well, I guess a couple weeks before, end of July. But yes,
July?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
And since that time, you've engaged in different arguments about the children, fair to say?
Sure, yes.
About their custody, who they should live with more often than not, fair to say?
Sure, yes.
You've had the same arguments since you broke up that you've described to us here in your testimony today, right?
Not to that extent, but yes, yes,
Okay, but you've had arguments about money since August of 2023.
yes,
You've testified that those arguments involved Caitlyn asking you for more money, correct?
yes,
You've had arguments about how much time the other parent should get to spend with each child, correct?
no, not how much they should spend. I always wanted to try to keep it 50-50.
You wanted to keep it 50-50, but since August, you've seen Valen, I think you said 93 times, and Caitlyn had her 48, correct?
Or I think it was 98 and 48 and then 15 split. But that was a lot of what Caitlyn was telling me about was just how difficult it was to try to work and also care for the kids at the same time. So it was just making sense with me having them more. That wasn't me demanding that I needed them more, no.
Okay. But you wanted to have full custody of them with her elsewhere, correct?
No, absolutely not.
You testified that you've spoken with attorneys in both Nevada and Minnesota, correct?
Yes,
You never filed for custody in Nevada? Correct?
no,
You never filed for custody in Minnesota, correct?
no,
You never filed paperwork with any court, correct?
no,
There is no court order that gave you sole custody of these children, correct?
no, I didn't want full custody or sole custody.
And there was no court order that took away Caitlyn's rights to custody of the children, correct?
No,
She, in fact, and you had the same or equal rights to both children, correct?
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
that's correct, yes.
Now, when you walked over to your desk to pick up the gun, you picked up the gun, correct?
Yes,
You've testified that you racked the slide.
yes,
That placed a bullet in the chamber, correct?
yes.
You left the safety on at that point because you were not quite ready to fire?
Well, I'm fairly certain when you rack it back, the safety gets flipped off because the hammer is back.
Caitlyn saw you pick up the gun, didn't she?
I'm sure she did, yes.
Caitlyn heard you rack the slide, correct?
Your Honor, may we approach?
Still with us, former Deputy Public Defender for LA County, Philip Dubé. All right, Philip, still into this cross-examination, talking about why he didn't call the police. She was asking him. He said, I called my parents, and she said they were thousands of miles away. Any more thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think the jury needs to be able to relate to and perceive his need to use deadly force. And for whatever reason, it's just falling flat. He is not relatable in any way. He is not emoting any type of trauma, distress, psychiatric frailties, or any other feeble state of mind. I mean, just nothing. In fact, he comes off quite tempered, very much in control, and measured, and yeah, full of hubris. And I love the question that the prosecutor asked him on cross about both parents' right to equal access to their own children. And it goes back to what I mentioned in the earlier block about how the spirit of the self-defense law in New Hampshire about being allowed to use deadly force to thwart a kidnap is to try to thwart a kidnap by a stranger, by some type of an intruder, but not someone who has the right to equal access of the same individual. And is just ridiculous. I mean, normally, like at the old common law, we associate kidnap with just somebody like the boogeyman breaking into the house at night, taking the kid and running off. Well, then you grab your gun and you shoot that person. But basically what he did is he shot the biological mother of these children. And for the jury to conclude that this was to thwart a kidnap, I just think this is a really, really weak rabbit hole to go down. I do.
I'm glad you raised that, Philip. The equal access to the children is really important here because this kidnapping claim, sometimes we do see non-custodial parents who kidnap the child or someone who doesn't have custody, who is related, maybe even biologically to the child. But this is not that because they had not even gone through that type of process yet. She had just as much right to custody as he did. So at what point is it kidnapping? Let's go back in. That sidebar is now over, picking it up with that question about the back and forth between these two.
Rack the slide, correct?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, you can hear it, right?
You can hear it.
You heard it in this room when Jill Terrio racked a slide on an unloaded gun, correct?
Yes.
So you can assume if Caitlyn's sitting closer to the gun than you were, she heard it, right?
Yes.
She reacted, didn't she?
She did not, no.
Caitlyn didn't ask you what you were doing?
Maybe she attempted to say that.
Well, did she attempt to say, what are you doing? Or did she say, what are you doing?
I can't say.
Mr. Duren, do you recall what Caitlyn did that was her attempt to say, what are you doing?
No.
Mr. Duren, you've reviewed all of the evidence for this case, correct?
I hope so, yes.
Okay, you've spoken to your attorneys about it?
Yes.
You've gone over any reports that were created?
Your Honor, we approach